They declared my barbecue smoke a health hazard and threatened to report me to the health department. Smirking, they said, "Go grill somewhere else." Their partner mocked, "Or just stop inviting people over." I replied, "I'll fight this legally." They were stunned when the health inspector found violations in their own backyard. I never thought my weekend barbecues would lead to a full-blown neighborhood feud. Living in St. Petersburg, Florida, my backyard had always been the go-to spot for friends and family to gather, enjoy grilled food, and share stories. The aroma of smoked ribs and brisket was a Sunday tradition, something I looked forward to every week. Everything was smooth until the Petersons moved in next door. At first, we exchanged polite greetings, the usual neighborly nods and waves. But things changed one evening when Mrs. Peterson approached me as I was firing up the grill. "James," she said, her tone sharp, "the smoke from your barbecues is invading our home. It's becoming unbearable." I was surprised. "I'm sorry to hear that. I try to keep the smoke under control. Is there a specific time it's worse? Maybe I can adjust." She exchanged a look with her husband, who stood behind her with his arms crossed. "We'd prefer if you didn't grill at all," she stated bluntly. Mr. Peterson smirked. "Maybe you should find somewhere else to grill," he added. Their dismissive attitude irritated me. "I have the right to enjoy my property," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "If there's an issue, perhaps we can find a compromise." Mrs. Peterson's eyes narrowed. "If you don't stop, we'll report this to the health department." I felt my patience slipping. "I'll fight this legally if I have to." They seemed taken aback but turned and left without another word. A week later, a health inspector knocked on my door. He explained that a complaint had been filed about excessive smoke. I showed him my setup, the measures I took to control smoke, and even offered references from other neighbors who had no issues. After a thorough inspection, he nodded. "Everything seems in order here. However, since a complaint was made, I have to follow protocol. I'll also need to inspect the surrounding properties to ensure there are no other violations." I watched as he made his way to the Petersons' house. Curiosity got the better of me, and I observed from my kitchen window. The inspector spent a considerable amount of time there, taking notes and snapping photos. Days later, I received a copy of the report. While my property was cleared of any violations, the Petersons weren't as fortunate. Their backyard was cited for several infractions: improper storage of waste, stagnant water breeding mosquitoes, and even a dilapidated shed deemed a safety hazard. Not long after, I noticed a flurry of activity next door. Contractors came and went, repairing the shed, cleaning up the yard, and addressing the violations. The Petersons avoided me, but the tension was palpable. One evening, as I was setting up my grill, Mr. Peterson approached the fence. Gone was the smug demeanor. "James," he began, rubbing the back of his neck, "about the complaints. Maybe we overreacted." I looked up, tongs in hand. "We all have our preferences," I replied cautiously. He sighed. "Truce." I extended my hand over the fence. "Truce." So, after the whole health inspector mess and the surprise backyard violations, I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. The Petersons stopped talking to me, sure. But instead of staying quiet and moving on, they got sneakier. It started with small things. One morning, I woke up to find my trash can knocked over. At first, I figured it was raccoons. Florida's full of them. But it kept happening every Monday morning like clockwork. No bite marks. No mess, just dumped out like someone tipped it over on purpose. I set up a security camera on my garage. Caught nothing. Then I realized the camera angle didn't catch the side gate. So I moved it. And that's when I saw it. 2:13 a.m. Grainy footage. Mr. Peterson, shirtless, barefoot, walking up to the side of my house with a flashlight. Tipped the bin, turned, and walked back like it was a midnight stroll. I saved the footage. Didn't confront him. Not yet. Then came the noise. Almost every night, around 11 p.m., they'd blast music. Old, angry classic rock. Not the good kind. Just loud enough to be annoying. I called them out once. His response? "It's America. You like fire, I like sound." I didn't say anything, but I started documenting everything. Then came the letters. 3 different letters from the HOA, anonymous complaints about unsightly gatherings, improper yard maintenance, and nuisance behavior. Funny, no one else on the block had an issue. I keep my yard cleaner than most. I mow twice a week. I have solar lights around the walkway. My guests park properly. No one ever stays past 9 p.m. But the letters kept coming. Then, things got really weird. One Saturday, during a small cookout, my water hose suddenly lost pressure. We were mid-cleanup. I checked the spigot, nothing. Walked around the side of the house. My hose had been cut. Clean slice. Someone used shears. That was war. I called the cops. Filed a report. Showed them the video of the trash tipping. Showed them the hose. But the officer just nodded, took notes, and said, without clearer footage or a witness, we can't really push charges. But keep documenting. So I did. A week later, I installed 2 more cameras, one over the backyard, one covering the front. That's when I saw it. Mrs. Peterson, during one of her evening walks, flicked a cigarette into my mulch bed. It didn't start a fire, thankfully. But she didn't even look back. Still, no one did anything. And then came the final straw. It was a Sunday. I had my brother, his kids, and my old high school buddy over. A chill afternoon. Ribs, cornbread, a cooler of beer. I kept the smoke low, used hickory chips instead of mesquite. The smell was amazing. Right when we sat down to eat, I heard shouting from the other side of the fence. You ever gonna stop poisoning the air? Mrs. Peterson yelled. Then something flew over the fence. A bag. It landed right in the middle of my backyard. Split open. Dog poop. Old. Moldy. Stinking. Everyone froze. My buddy stood up. What the hell? My nephew started gagging. I walked over, picked it up with a shovel, and dumped it in the bin. I didn't say a word. Instead, I sent every video, every photo, every HOA letter, and a written report to my lawyer. Turns out, he loves barbecue too. And it turns out, the Petersons made a huge mistake because someone had once filed a similar complaint against them before in their old neighborhood. They were repeat harassers. And this time, I was ready. My lawyer, Jason, was a calm guy. Sharp, but quiet. Former military. Doesn't waste words. I emailed him everything late Sunday night. Videos, photos, scanned letters, even a timeline I made. Monday morning, he called me. They've done this before, he said. You're not crazy. These 2 are textbook bullies. And now we've got a paper trail. That's when he told me about something I didn't know existed, a pattern of nuisance harassment, clause in our HOA agreement. Basically, if a neighbor has a history of stirring trouble and they've been warned by the HOA or authorities before, it opens up a path for legal mediation, or in some cases, fines and restrictions. And that's when we made a plan. I filed a formal complaint with the HOA. Not anonymous. I attached my evidence. I requested mediation. I requested investigation into all their HOA complaints. Every bogus report they'd sent. But here's where the twist came. The HOA president, a guy named Rick, showed up at my door the next evening. And he didn't look happy. James, he said. Got your file. It's a lot. Yeah, I said. Because I've been dealing with a lot. He rubbed his forehead. Look, off the record, they've been doing this to others. We've had 3 homeowners move in the last year because of them. But every time someone complains, the Petersons counter-complain. Say they're being harassed. And they've got an attorney who's just annoying enough to make things stall. That ticked me off. So you've known about this and let them keep doing it? Rick sighed. We're a volunteer board, man. We don't have power like people think. But this, he held up my folder, this changes things. Then came the next hit. 2 days later, I get a knock on the door. It's the city code inspector. Again. I've got another complaint about your grill, this time about your fuel storage and potential open flame hazards. I laughed. Then I showed him the brand new, sealed containers I kept in a locked cabinet. my safety shut off, my flame-resistant cover, my fire extinguisher setup. He just nodded. This is all solid. But I've still gotta inspect the other side. And here's where it got wild. He walked over to the Petersons. 15 minutes later, he knocked on my door again. Hey, do you know if they're running a business from their backyard? I blinked. What? Looks like a full pet boarding setup. 10 crates, large runs, and some sort of payment board inside the shed. I didn't know what to say. That evening, I watched from my kitchen window as the inspector stood in the Petersons' backyard, hands on hips, staring at their setup. Mr. Peterson was pacing. Mrs. Peterson was red in the face, yelling. Then animal control showed up. Apparently, someone else had complained. And when the city showed up, they discovered unlicensed boarding of dogs. 8, to be exact. Turns out, the Petersons had turned their backyard into an under-the-radar dog-sitting operation, loud barking, poor sanitation, and no permits. And now the city was on them for health violations, noise violations, and operating a business without a license. I didn't have to lift a finger. But it didn't stop there. A few days later, one of my other neighbors, Rosa, an older widow who lives across the street, knocked on my door. "You're fighting them, right?" she asked. I nodded. Good. They poisoned my flower bed last fall. I couldn't prove it, but I know it was them. They threatened to report my yard for overgrowth because I leave bird seed out. If you need a statement, I'll give one. Then another neighbor stepped forward. And another. People started talking. Turns out, the Petersons weren't just bothering me. They'd been messing with people for years. But no one wanted to deal with the hassle of fighting them. Until now. Now people had someone to rally behind. Me. Jason started collecting statements. HA opened a full review. Animal control kept revisiting their backyard. The city slapped them with fines. And then, just when I thought we were hitting the peak, I came home one evening to find something strange. A small envelope taped to my front door. No name, no return address. Inside was a photo. A photo of me in my backyard, grilling. Taken from a distance. I looked at the angle. It wasn't from the Petersons' yard. It was from someone else's. And written in thick black marker across the back, "Keep pushing and you'll regret it." I stood there holding that photo for a long time. Someone was watching me. Not just the Petersons, someone else on the block. That night, I didn't sleep much. I reviewed all my footage. Nothing. No sign of someone walking by. No camera angles showing the exact shot. But I knew one thing. This had gone way beyond petty neighbor drama. It had turned personal. The next day, I did 2 things. 1, I handed the photo to Jason. 2, I bought 2 more cameras. Jason called me the next morning. "James," he said, "this wasn't printed on home paper. It's photo lab quality. That means they went out of their way to print and deliver it." He paused. "And based on the angle? That photo came from the backyard of the Hendersons." I went silent. The Hendersons lived 2 houses down. I barely ever talked to them. Retired. Quiet. Always working on their RV. Jason kept going. We ran a quick check. Guess who bought the Petersons' house back in Georgia 3 years ago? The Hendersons. My jaw dropped. It wasn't random. The Petersons and the Hendersons were friends. Maybe family. They moved here together. 2 houses apart. And they'd probably been playing this game for a while. Now I was pissed. I didn't go to them. I didn't scream or throw a fit. I did what I had been doing since the start. I built a case. I collected everything again. The noise logs, the video of the trash, the animal control reports, Rosa's statement, the new envelope with the creepy photo. Jason added the connection between the Georgia home sale and their move here. And then we made our move. Jason submitted everything to the HOA, the city attorney's office, animal control, the code enforcement board, and, for good measure, the local news tip line. Within 2 weeks, it all came crashing down. The HOA issued a cease and desist order against the Petersons and the Hendersons. Multiple complaints, property violations, and threats to neighbors. Their HOA privileges were suspended. Fines started piling up, $250 a day. The city fined the Petersons for operating an unlicensed business, failing to maintain health standards, and obstructing investigations. Total? $9,800 and counting. Animal control shut down their operation permanently. And the news? Oh, they loved it. A local station ran a story titled, "Barbecue Smoke Sparks Suburban War, Neighbors Caught in Harassment Scheme." They blurred faces, but everyone in the neighborhood knew who it was. And the final twist? One morning I opened my door to find a moving truck outside the Petersons' house. They were leaving. 2 hours later, another truck pulled up in front of the Hendersons' house. They were leaving too. Not a word. Not a goodbye. Just gone. But here's the part where I'll be honest. I made mistakes too. I should have spoken up sooner. I let them get under my skin. I let the anger build. I should have involved the community earlier. I shouldn't have tried to go it alone. I almost became what they were, obsessed with control, with winning. There was one night, just before the news story aired, when I considered mailing them something nasty. Just one jab to let them feel what I felt. But I didn't. Because revenge is best served with ribs, cold beer, and a clean conscience. Now, my Sundays are peaceful again. Smoke rising gently. Friends laughing. Neighbors waving. And one new guest, Rosa. She brings lemonade now. We toast together. We call it victory juice.